I don't think of those things. And I expect him to be thinking of all these little things.
We think differently, however, the end goal is the same.
It's becoming a culture to be afraid of commitment.
There's no playbook that tells you how to do anything. You have to evolve, you have to learn as you go along. Hello, this is Dr. Triple O. The topic today is the great gender divide. Before we dive into this topic, I'd like to talk about a few things. Relationship is a common connection between two people, objects, or concepts. There are four basic types of relationship. You have the family relationship, you have the acquaintance relationship, you have the romantic relationship, and you have the friendship relationship. Today we'll focus more on the romantic relationship, specifically when it comes to a man and a woman. Today we have Nick with us. Thanks for coming. We have Grant. Thanks for being here. We have Teresa. She was here on episode 1. And we have Kylie. Thanks for joining us. And I hope you guys are ready to dive into this topic. It should be very juicy. Now, going back to the romantic relationship, there are several types of romantic relationship, which include dating, committed relationship, casual sex, situational relationship, or ethical non-monogamy relationship. But that being said, the main goal is to discuss the relationship between men and women. Regardless of what type of romantic relationship you're in, we all agree that men and women think and act differently. So today we're going to hear about your thoughts, your personal experiences, and hopefully we can come to common ground. So let's start by sharing what we think about relationship between men and women.
You mentioned casual sex. And this is something that I hear from men, is casual sex, but women doesn't think of it as casual sex. How do you determine that this is casual sex when you're in somewhat of a relationship or you meet someone?
Well, I remember I started off with the definition of relationship. A relationship has to deal with two or more people. So when you are in a casual relationship, there are two people involved. So when you meet that individual, you should have that discussion as to what type of relationship you want to fit into, what category you want to put yourself into. So if there is no conversation, then there becomes confusion. Expectation leads to disappointment. So you always want to have that communication. So anyone else?
I think it's a very interesting start point, but I think it actually kind of relates to every type of relationship and how you need to start that off, which is set some type of boundary, have the communication beforehand. What are we doing? What are we doing in this? Where are we going with this? What's the end goal? Where are we now? And if you have that kind of communication, maybe you can get there. And casual, it sounds like kind of a scary thing. And as we sit in an infectious disease doctor's office, it's even scarier to think about casual sex. But I think it's more of a establish boundaries, establish where we're going with this. Which type of the four types of relationships are we moving into to begin with? Are we friends? Are we acquaintances? Is this going to get real and romantic? Are we in love? Are we work colleagues and all this stuff's getting messed up? Like, let's establish this beforehand, and then we can move forward and decide.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. This is one of the reasons why we're doing this show. So you hear from a female perspective how she perceived casual relationship, and you hear from a male perspective, and I think this is where we have that disconnect. So, we think differently. However, the end goal is the same. So So having that communication, that open communication, is really key to define how you're gonna get there. So I'd like to hear from Nick or Kylie. Anything that, from a female or male perspective, how do you see your communication with the opposite sex?
Yeah, I mean, for particularly my age, the casual sex
That's
is
what I was gonna
very
say.
different, than I'm assuming what it would be for, people your guys' ages. What I've encountered a lot is, there
Me
is
too.
an increasing number of females who are more into a casual relationship than there are males. And I've found myself, personally, along with other friends who have wanted something a little bit more serious, and the female was a little bit more hesitant to form a more serious or more formal relationship because they were just interested in the casual aspect of it. I've found that there is an increasing number of both men and women who are tends to stick to what's comfortable, which is just casual. They're afraid to commit to something because I feel like it's becoming a culture to be afraid of commitment and to really commit to one another. So that leaves a lot of room for, people hurting each other or, just more casual relationships as a whole.
And there's so many options with dating websites, and especially with the younger generation. Like, I agree with him. It's not just men or boys. I see it in younger girls too they have casual relationships all the time and they don't care.
So it sounds to me like two things have come up so far: uh, communication and commitment. So we're going to talk more about that later on. Now, with respect to the need or the wants, if you are in a relationship with someone, how do you communicate? I mean, what's your strategy when you communicate with your man?
A lot of our communication, female, is a little different from how men will like to communicate. For instance, if I go home and my husband said to me, "How was your day?" I'm going to give him a whole list from the time I came in the morning until I left for the day. He doesn't want to hear that. He wants to hear, "Oh, it was a busy day. My day was fine. It's wonderful." That's all he wants to hear. What makes it so different from your perspective as a man and female perspective?
You guys want to take that?
For me, it's every day that we move forward positively, really, and nothing negative happens because of what we've set up and kind of our infrastructure. If we get through the day, it's a good day. And that's kind of how I think of it. And I know that's not how my significant other thinks of it, right? There are intricacies and relationship things, but for me, it's more, hey, we got through, we accomplished this today. We're both moving forward to the next day. We've had our struggles, but we're both here now, having dinner, talking to our kids. So for me, it was a good day. But there are intricacies and there are different goals and objectives for each individual that kind of have to be met and merged in order for you to really know that it was positive.
Great point. Kylie, what do you think?
Depends what we're communicating about.
Anything.
I mean, just simple everyday conversations are always very calm. I mean, I think if you're in an argument, my communication style is more step away from the situation for a minute, calm down, then sit down and have a conversation. And that's worked for me as I've gotten older. When I was younger, not so much.
What's your experience?
Yeah, so younger me was extremely passionate. So the whole let's take a minute, back off, and revisit this, they didn't really fly for me. As I'm growing older, I'm starting to see the true value in that. I'm dating someone who's a little bit younger than I am, so she's still struggling with that concept a little bit. She wants to just lay it all out the table and solve it right then and there. When in reality, I've found that in a lot of situations that we've had conflict, there needs to be certain space and a little distance for us to not only process how we feel, but how we made each other feel. You know, it's very hard to, you know, lay everything out on the table when we're still trying to figure out our own emotions at the same time. I think you need to have enough time to process everything and just really listen to each other. You know, I'd like to believe I listen to her, but, you know, obviously sometimes she says I don't listen enough, so.
It's kind of interesting listening to both sides. And, you know, there seems to be a conflict in terms of how we convey information across the sexes. But we also know deep down how each other feels. So if we know, if you as women know how men think in terms of communication, you have to respect that. Don't give them too much information. And for you guys know the women will give you more information. You have to be receptive. I think that's one of the things that we struggle with, and we know it. We talk about it every day, but we don't do anything about it.
But Dr. O, we get into it every day. I think, you know, my wife understands that. She's an intelligent woman, went to Princeton University. She's smart. She gets what I need, and I get what she needs. But it's the daily, it's the grind, it's the consistency of it all.
Yeah.
It's always remembering. It's getting back to that point of we're always coming from a good place with whatever we're doing. But what's the empathetic situation of the day? How can I put myself in your shoes? What did you go through today? And trying to balance that. And it's almost impossible to do on a daily basis.
I think that's a great point. I think this is where connection comes into place. So you have to almost set yourself a time, maybe on a weekly basis or bi-weekly or once a month. Say, listen, we're going to meet for 15, 20 minutes and reconnect. And have, in the last 2 weeks, we had these things, I think we're losing our way. Let's reconnect. I think you're right. We're all busy. Once you get busy going, you forget. And then something happens. You run into, a wall and go, whoa. And then you have that conflict, then you have to learn how to fix it. So I think if you proactively have a connection period where periodically you just have, have to sit down over a cup of coffee or glass of wine and say, and last week I've been coming up very late, and you're not very receptive to listen to what I have to say. Oh, because at that time neither of you is pissed off or angry, so you're more likely to be receptive to each other. And again, nobody teaches us how to do these things, so you kind of figure it out as you go along. But I think that piece could alleviate some of that. Daily, you forget. I mean, we're all humans. We forget that. Okay. So I'd like to kind of hear from you guys what you think about trusting your partner. Where does trust and respect fit into your relationship? Who wants to take this?
It fits 100%.
How so?
Well, if I don't trust you, I don't feel, as a woman, I don't feel like I can go every day and get through my thoughts without wondering if you're cheating on me. And then also, if I don't respect you, I normally don't want to be with you. I lose that lust for you if the respect is gone.
Okay. Is this a mutual respect and mutual trust?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You guys? Yes.
I think in 2024, trust and respect is absolutely critical, and there are ways that it can come up that we never thought of before. So, for instance, and many people think this is controversial, and I've talked to my brother about it before, and he's like, why? But my wife and I share our locations all the time, right? So she always knows where I am, and I always know where she is. And you might say, is that a lack of trust that you have to do that? Is it ultimate trust and respect that you do that, right? And I don't know, but we do that.
But are you guys doing it to make sure, like, oh, hey, she's on the way home with the kids, or just like a safety thing?
It all started, of course, it started out of love. right? Where are you, my love? Where are you okay? Let me make sure you're okay. And then as time evolves, then you have kids and the relationship grows, then it becomes more of, well, this is nice because I can check in to see if the kids are okay, if everybody's okay. So it evolves, but at the same time, it's kind of like, this is a leash on me. Like, everybody knows at all times exactly where sometimes I need to just go to a bar and have a drink, right? Like, that's the reality.
But I think what you said is, I think it's very interesting, because if two people agree to have that done, mutual, they both agree upon it, there's nothing wrong with that. However, in a situation like this, when you first had it done, it was fine, but now you think that there needs to be a change. So that's when it comes renegotiation, where you just sit down and say, okay, now we the different space. I feel this pressure, I feel this stress, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. You can always, in a relationship, we grow, and I think we have to have the next, term that we have to worry about is adaptability. You have to be to adapt. So you meet your partner 10 years ago. 20 years later, they're not looking the same. They're not, they're not interested in the same thing they were interested in. And if you don't accept that and respect that, then you're gonna have a problem. So realigning or adapting to the changes in life nothing stays the same. So I think having that conversation and again, going back to communication, and then renegotiation, and being being able to adapt to the situation will make things better. So that's sure I like that.
Which is true. In order for your relationship to flourish, you do have to have a trust and respect for each other. This year's going to be 30 years since I've been married. And yes, I trust my husband. If he tells me that, oh, I'm coming up, I'll be home late, I'm hanging out with the guys or whatever it is, I'm not going to question him or track him to see where he is and so forth. Okay, he's coming home late. Communication plays a big part of it, as long as you communicate. Normally I get home at a certain time, but if I'm going to be home an hour later, whatever it is, I'll call him or text him and say, I'm running late. He's not going to text me back and say, where are you? What are you doing? Right. Because he trusts that I'm doing something important, or I stopped somewhere and I'll be home late. And it's a matter of respecting each other. If he comes home an hour late, I'm not going to question him and say, oh, where have you been? You're supposed to be home at 6 o'clock. Now it's 7:30. No. He will communicate that to me. I'll be home, around 7, 8 o'clock. And that's it. Now, there's sometimes now, you want to, where is he? He said 7 o'clock. It's now 7:30. Where is he? But to be understanding wife, I tried to overlook that and say, oh, wow, nice, you're home, some smart remark.
Thanks for coming home, Wayne.
I see. What do you think, Nick? Let's say Wayne here.
Yeah, I think trust and respect are two co-independent things. I think that they go hand in hand in a lot of situations, but in today's world, how do you define respect? I mean, it's particularly for my generations. I'm not on social media anymore, but when I did have social media, my number one complaint from my girlfriend was, oh, you don't post me enough. Why are you liking this person's picture? You should comment more on my pictures. You need to be more vocal about our relationship on social medias, whereas me, I'm a very private person. I don't necessarily like to put all my business out there. Like when I have kids, if I have kids, I don't plan on putting them on my Facebook. I'd rather my wife doesn't put them on Facebook. That's just the way I like to go about things. My life is my life and no one else's. I noticed that, to just serve her needs and her requests, I just started posting her, and I started to realize, okay, my social media is just an extension of your social media. There's no point for this anymore. So obviously the conversation came about. I was like, I'm really only coming on social media to just check in on everybody. I don't really care much about that. So I took the decision to just delete it. But going back to how do you define respect? That's a constantly changing word with a constantly adapting new definition. How do you define respect? How do you actively respect someone in today's changing world? I feel like that plays a big factor in trust and respect.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think respecting each other, the word respect means understanding their perspective, not only during good times, even during bad times. So when you are having an argument with your partner, you may be angry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset. But you still have to respect them during that moment you're angry. Now, you may say, I want to step back a little bit, like you mentioned earlier on, to kind of calm yourself down, go through the process in your head before you say something, so you don't say something that you might regret. But sometimes it doesn't work because women are more like now. She may want to hear from you right away, and you walking away trying to calm down, it make her more angry. And so at the time that you're not angry, that's a discussion you can also have at that moment. Like, when we have an argument, I'm gonna need to take time to relax. Don't want to talk to you. So it's just constant. I mean, there's no playbook that tells you how to do anything. You have to evolve. You have to learn as you go along. But the basic structures remain the same. You gotta trust them. They gotta trust you. You gotta respect them. They gotta respect you. It's both ways. All these characteristics, you have to be able to adapt to new situations. They have to adapt to your situation. So you have to communicate, effective communication. So let's talk about communication, for example. People say communication. Most people don't understand communication requires listening. You have to be a good listener. So if I'm talking to you and you're not listening, there is no communication. If you don't hear what I'm saying, how can you respond to me? And so you have to hear me out, and I have to hear you out. It goes both ways. And we can't try and outdo each other. So that's why sometimes if you're angry, step away and say, can we talk about this later when you calm down, and have that communication. So, communication is not as easy as people think. And when there's a conflict, so when you have an argument with your spouse, do you go, hey, you did this to me, you shouldn't have done that, how do you approach that communication?
I'm actually probably opposite than most females. I'm the type of person that I will get emotional and angry, so I have to walk away, but I try and explain that I'm doing that so that I don't get emotional, I don't start crying, I don't blow up, and it doesn't turn into an argument that it doesn't need to be. I go take my time, do a hobby, something. Okay, let's sit down, have a talk.
What about you?
But I have to explain to him, like, you have to give me time, because he wants to solve it right now. And sometimes I don't want to solve it right now. Like, sometimes it takes me a day that I need to get my thoughts together and exactly what I want to say and how I want to approach it so that we can move forward in the best way.
Okay, great. T?
I don't back off.
Total opposite.
I don't back off. So my husband would be the one to back off and say, okay.
Before you move forward, let's kind of elaborate on what you mean by you don't back off. Because you kind of almost like you jumped the first sentence and you went to the second one. Where does it begin?
Let's say there is a conflict,
Yes.
and I would constantly go at it to get it resolved. We're going to discuss what I want to discuss. And if my significant other, husband, decide he's going to explain, okay, this is what happened, this is what you're telling me, and then I would turn back and say, well, that's a man's point of view now. You have to listen to what I have to say. So you don't get anything done there. Then he would be the one to back off and say, okay, we'll discuss this at another time. Give me a minute.
So very, very interesting what she said. So I'm not sure she's listening what she's saying, but what I'm hearing is basically my way or no way. Which is not going to solve any conflict.
True.
So you cannot say, I don't back up, you have to listen to me, whatever you say is wrong, it's a man's way. That's not going to solve a problem. So it should not be my way or his way. It should be, what are your thoughts? You may not agree. You can agree to disagree. I hear what you're saying, but this is how this is where I feel. So how do we come together, compromise? So if you're already going at it like it's gonna be my way, you're never going to resolve any problem.
True.
So if even though you might back up and say, back off and say, okay, but if you go deep down, it's not over with him. He's not happy with that. So you don't want that situation. You really want to know. You want him to buy into the solution. You know, it might just go along just to keep peace for the moment, but that the problem there will show up a year later, 6 months later. So that will not be the best approach. May I ask?
I try to, and I'll go back to this word, empathy. I try to be empathetic, and I'll try to ask myself why. Why are we having this conflict? Why am I angry? More importantly, why am I angry? And then that will go back to, obviously, one of those boundaries that we initially set, or I thought that we had set, is now being breached, right? And it hasn't been communicated why it's being breached, and you know, there's a breakdown in communication that's led to this conflict. Really, that's pretty. It's 99% of all conflicts is a breakdown in communication of where you are at that moment that's now led to this conflict. So I try to ask what happened, why, step back, see where we are. I oftentimes have to do that, step away. I might need a day
Collect your thoughts.
or 4.
Sometimes I feel like I need a week, but I don't have a week.
Okay? It's the reality of the situation. Cut that.
What do you think, Nick?
I feel that, obviously I've been with my girlfriend for 2 years now. The amount of conflict we have, we're freshly at the honeymoon phase. So, we're starting to see that conflict. But what I've noticed is a lot of the conflict that we've had has been rooted from a conflict that's completely unrelated from the situation. Take, for example, we don't live together. So whenever I do go to her house and spend the night and she cooks, she kind of has that expectation to do the dishes. And there's been, one particular situation where I just forgot to do them. She was like, why didn't you do them? I cooked for you, I'm hosting you, like, you can't help me around here, like, it's totally the mess, this, and that. And I'm just confused. I'm like, why are you mad? I'll do them right now, no problem. You could just ask nicely. And then later that night we had a conversation. I started thinking, that made no sense why you just lashed out at me. Like, where is this really coming from? What's the actual issue here? Did something happen at work? Did something happen during your day that just really set you off? Maybe this has been a trail of events that's been going on where I've made you feel that I don't help you out enough because of something that's happened in your past. Like, what's really going on here? Because sometimes the superficial issues tend to be a lot deeper, and we're still getting to know each other. So I take that as an opportunity to not just resolve that issue at hand, but also resolve what other issues that could be rooted from.
That's good.
Right.
It's a great point, but you also have to understand something about, I'm not going to say women, men too.
Mm.
If you do little things for your spouse, when they least expect sometimes, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
So even if they have a long day and you just come and say, honey, I have a glass of wine. I just want to sit down and put your feet up, or let me rub your back, or let's say flower. No matter how stressed they are, you bring a smile to their face, and they're gonna remember that. So yeah, that may not be you that's doing that. It may just be they're just looking for you to show something, some sympathy, that you're there.
But I think that's where we get into the push-pull of, I'm trying to be empathetic and think about what you need.
Yes.
But are you being empathetic and thinking about what I need? I need the little
Yes.
whatnots and to-dos every now and then too. It can't always just be me
No,
thinking about and bringing the
oh, yeah.
flowers and
No, it's gotta be
rubbing the
both
back.
ways.
It's
gotta be
very
both
true.
ways.
It's very true. It goes both ways
Yeah.
because sometimes, as a female, I expect my husband to do certain things, but I don't do it in return. Like bringing flowers, or he likes chocolate. Do I pick up a box of chocolate and say, "Oh wow, I brought you chocolate today"? I don't think of those things. And I expect him to be thinking of all these little things.
And it's kind of natural and ingrained.
Correct.
Yes.
And I think that's why that connection thing comes into place again, because you may grow up not doing such a thing, and you have a partner that wants those things done, but you have to have that conversation once in a while. These are my needs, these are my wants, these are things I like. What do you like? And I think if you make it a routine conversation, before you know it, become part of you, and you just do it naturally, and then you're able to take away some of that stress. So we've talked a lot about various factors that are needed in a good relationship, and we could spend another hour discussing different types of things that we've experienced or other people have experienced. So what I'm going to do next is kind of like go over characteristics of a healthy relationship. And so we talk about each of them briefly and get input from all of you. So we'll start with the first one, which is respect. We spoke briefly about that. You asked what the definition is definition of respect. So the definition of respect in a relationship is caring deeply about the other person, and they have to do the same. And you have to mutually, if you have that mutual respect, that deep caring about each other, and that when you deeply care about something, you think about something in your life that you deeply care about. Think about how you treat that thing. So if both of you have that same feeling towards each other, that's one good characteristic you must have. Now, the next thing is intimacy, which we actually didn't even address. Actually, we need to address this now because, the female perspective is always different from male perspectives. I want to see, Kylie, when it comes to relationship, what does intimacy mean to you?
Honestly, it's probably as simple as just the connection you share with that person.
Okay.
Doesn't necessarily have to be sexual or anything like that.
Okay. What about you? See?
Similar to Kylie, like it doesn't have to be sexual. A simple thing, sitting together, watching TV, holding hands, or walking, going out for a stroll, coming in, doing things together. For instance, you're preparing a meal, can I help you with something? You do things together.
Okay. What's intimacy for you? Sorry, I asked.
I don't want to contrast this too much from that
can
other
be
side.
honest.
No, well, no.
You can
I
be
think
honest.
before you answer that question, I'm gonna go back to the ladies. What do you think how do you think your partner defines intimacy?
Sex.
That was
We seem to have a uniform.
Because I
Okay.
think guys connect through sex.
Okay, let's go to the guys then.
Yes.
So guys, what do you think?
What is intimacy to me? Should we do this in chorus or not?
You can set the tone for this one.
Be honest.
Of course, there has to be some physical attraction. That's to start with, right? And I'm going back previously to marriage and everything. There's physical attraction, then physical intimacy. Intimacy was physical. It had to be. That's what took it to the next level for me. Can't get too.
Okay,
yeah.
what about you,
Yeah.
Nick?
It's interesting. I've had partners who they craved the physical intimacy aspect of a relationship a little bit more than others. Me as a guy, I'm inclined obviously more one way than I am the other. But that's not to say I don't appreciate the times where we can just go walk on a beach on a vacation or just go share a glass of wine at a dinner and have an intimate conversation about our future, how we envision that, how much we've grown in the past couple months, years, etc. I don't think for a man it's entirely physical. I think it's a great deal. It's a pretty great deal to be, but not 100% of the pie. I mean, it's.
I think as guys, I think we're immature when it comes to intimacy. We start off at a more immature level where it needs to be physical. And moving forward in a relationship, intimacy isn't about the physical. It's a great part of it. If your sex life is great, that's wonderful. But it gets more and more into, do you guys have common interest? Do you like to travel together? Do you like to talk about the books you've read? Do you like to drink the same beverages and have that night and watch a movie together? Those things start to become much more important than the physical. So,
I think
we have to be
It's
honest
good to hear
about
him
that.
say
I
that.
think he nailed it because, every time you ask women, they always give universal, well, I say universal, most people say men think about physical intimacy. And women tend to say we think about emotional intimacy. But the reality is what you just said. Women are more mature than, girls are more mature than boys when they are very early in their growth. But as men get older, they start to become more emotional. So they start off with physical and they turn emotional. And so, but the women still think that they're still all physical even when they're older, but it's not true. And so what's happened is, again, if you take a couple and ask them how many times you discuss intimacy, I can tell you most people don't. You just assume. So you women assume all the guys want is physical intimacy. If you maybe ask him like, hey, let's talk about intimacy. You might understand he wants to go to the movie. You might realize he wants to be able to take it to a library to read a book. That might be something that will turn him on or make him, that's the kind of intimacy he wants. Or he might love the same thing that you want, but you don't think he does, but you never give him the opportunity. And I think that, again, goes back to communication. Because intimacy, like, we men, we see people in the office that comes in men with erectile dysfunction who are older. And when you check them, there's nothing physically wrong with them. It's all here because they are struggling with their spouse. They are having arguments. Can't get along. And that turns them off. And so then they don't realize that because now their intimacy is now emotional, no longer physical. When they're young, it doesn't matter that they're angry or not, they're going to go ahead and do it. But it doesn't happen when they get older because now the switch, that switch is flipped. So again, having that conversation will let you know, this guy is not 18 anymore. It's now emotional at my level, so I got to work with him on that. So that's it. That's one of the characteristics of a healthy relationship. We mentioned trust, and we also mentioned effective communication. The other thing we didn't mention yet is friendship. Your partner is probably one of your closest friends.
True.
Because you spend time with them, you there with them all the time, and to have a great friendship is really important. Even little things like going to Publix together, doing little things, gardening something together,
Taking out the trash.
taking out the trash. Oh, let's talk about trash for a second. So in your household, who takes out the trash?
The man of the house.
My boyfriend takes it out, but in the mornings, I bring it back up to the garage for him. So when he gets home, he can just put it right back in the garage.
You said for him.
Well-
Yes, thank you.
Well, because he
Yes.
put it out,
Thank you,
so
Teresa,
I'm
for
not
pointing
going
that out.
to rely on him to bring it
so
in.
that's his job, so you're just doing it for him.
No,
you
because
said
when
for
I was
him.
single, I did it myself.
So, but now you say it's for him.
Well, because I'm trying to tag team the trash.
Then you didn't take it out for him, you take it out because you have to, not because for him. You make it as if it's his job, right?
No, I'm trying to be a team with him. He took it out and did something nice, so then I try and bring it in,
But not for him though.
well, for the household.
Correct.
For us.
For us.
I don't touch the trash.
Okay, when you were single, who took out the trash?
My brother, because I was at home with my parents.
So we always had to, almost you got married?
Once I got married,
Uh,
then
no, before you got married and when you left home, what happened? You trash the city, trash people.
well, I took it out. But since now I have a male figure with me,
Hmm.
that's his responsibility.
And he knows it,
He knows it.
and you both agree upon it.
Yes.
And then that's good.
I take out the trash in my place because I live by myself. But whenever I'm down visiting my girlfriend's house, I know what's expected.
Do we mean like just put the trash on the road?
No, I think I think there's this trash.
I understand.
Taking out the trash sometimes can be it's a simple task, but sometimes it can lead to conflict. So it's not a big deal to take the trash out, and most men would do that. But sometimes there is a conflict because we don't discuss it. Somebody didn't take out the trash, and that not taking the trash out becomes a bigger problem. And which one thing that we didn't mention before, when there is a conflict, the conflict happened. You can't, it's over. It happened 1 minute ago. When you are trying to move forward, you can't be bringing back what happened a year before. You gotta move forward.
Well,
Yeah.
as a female, we don't forget things.
No,
We may forgive you.
but it's always in our minds.
It's always in the back of our mind because I could remember things from 10 years ago.
So
But
what-
it depends on the situation. I will bring it back.
no, we'll talk about that in the next episode.
I take out the trash.
Okay.
I always take out the trash. If I don't take out the trash will build up. And in my mind, it's not right. But I come from a family where my dad told me, guys, take out the trash. Go drag it up the hill in Missouri where I grew up every week. Drag take the trash out every day. It was something I do. My only issue with having full trash responsibility, my only issue with full trash responsibility is that I have a 4-year-old daughter. And I don't want her to think or assume that it's going to always be the male full trash responsibility. I don't know if at 8 years old I should make her start taking out the trash.
My mom did.
Right? Like that's a
We had to take
because
turns.
I didn't in my house, and we didn't have girls. It was 3 boys, so I don't even really. It's a tough situation for me.
Yeah.
But I think I'll have to have her do that because
I mean, I do have 2 girls, and I think that when they were, when they were home before moving to college, sometimes I said, Dad, we took the trash out, we brought the trash in. I think it's really a team approach, like you mentioned. It shouldn't really be designated whatever. So if I'm with my wife at home, let's say I take the trash out all the time or most of the time, and I travel, I go out for a week.
Oh, I would do it.
So the trash will not stay till I come back. My wife will take it out. And I think that's the point he's trying to make, that it should not be, you have to take it out, so if you don't take it out, the trash will sit for a week or 2 weeks. I think that's, again, this is where conflict starts, because that's something that she automatically, well, Grant is not here, he's busy, it's not home, this needs to be taken care of, I'm here, I'll just do it. And I think that's the kind of, again,
But and that goes the other way because that starts to sound like my wife takes care of the kids at night, bathes them, pretty much puts them to sleep. I come in, I read a story, blah blah. I have my little time with them, but that's kind of the delineation of tasks.
correct.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, we're not saying it's a bad thing at all.
It's just
Yeah. I mean, we're
and
just
that's
saying
where
that.
it comes into communication, and those
Correct.
delineate the tasks
Correct.
and check in.
Correct.
I think all this is going to come back to a check-in point. but
Exactly.
We'll get back to
Exactly. When you think about what you just said, if you have a spouse that's raising the kids at home, and you out there working, tends to happen is, the kids have been screaming and yelling all day. Your spouse is tired. She needs a break. She hasn't been able to get out of the house. When you come back home, you're already tired. You've been dealing with a bunch of stuff at work. You want to come and relax. So you have a situation where both of you are exhausted and you need a break. And there has to be communication. Okay, I've dealt with a bunch of adults at work screaming and yelling. Let me take the little kids' noise, and you've been dealing with kids. You take a little break. And I think this is where, even though these are tasks that's normally done by you or by me, but you still have to find a way to give each other that support and break and understanding. And I think it really goes along with, oh, I know you're tired, you just came back from work, I'm exhausted too. You mind if you just, take care of the kids, I need to just go lay down a little bit, or, vice versa. I know you've been taking care of the kids all day, I brought you something, some dinner, I think, again, it goes back to communication, checking in and say, how we doing? What's going on the last few weeks? So that's where I'm going to leave it at that. Connection, I think we mentioned that already. Commitment. You've got to be committed during good and bad times. And, most relationships break up because they're not committed during
Or
the
they
bad
don't want to
time.
work
They
through
don't wanna
it.
work at it. So that's another good characteristic of good relationship. Healthy conflict. We talk about conflict. Not all conflicts are bad. You need to be able to have that have that discussion when you have a conflict and resolve it. If you cannot have that conversation when you have a conflict, you can't move on. You're gonna remember that tomorrow, the day after, and it's gonna kind of snowball into bigger things. So having that when you're having that conversation, no name calling, if you're gonna be calling somebody, just stop it and step back. Be flexible. We talked about that, and lastly, laugh and laugh. We take life too seriously.
Very true.
When everything in life is relative. When you think about your situation and look at other people's situation and go, oh my God, my life is actually easier. So learn to laugh and enjoy life. Thank you for joining us on this episode. Episode 3, we'll talk about how to resolve conflicts specifically. Thank you.